reward for this achievement? A half-hearted congratulations text with a $50 Applebee's gift card. There is no party, celebration supper, or anything. Simply put, here's some mediocre chain restaurant cuisine, now keep paying your rent. Tristan finished this month with a strong 2.4 GPA following 6 years of what I guess was professional beer pong training. This guy changed his major 3 times, failed many classes that he had to repeat, and essentially treated college as an extended vacation with occasional paper writing assignments. And how did my folks celebrate his lousy achievement? They purchased him a Tesla Model 3 Performance. Not the standard model, but the $60,000 plus option with all the bells and whistles. Premium sound system, the works. I still recall the day they handed it to him. We were all gathered in the driveway, when my father handed Tristan this small box. Inside are the keys to the dazzling white Tesla sitting across the street. Tristan starts freaking out and dancing around like he's won the lotto, while my mother shoots around 500 photos for Facebook. My father looks at me, notices my expression, and says, "Don't be jealous. Your brother deserves this after working so hard." What exactly are you working hard at? Beer pong championships? When I mentioned that I graduated with honors in 4 years despite working and earning nothing, my mother had the gall to comment, "Well, college was easier for you. Tristan really struggled. He struggled to get out of bed before noon and remember who he was dating that week." I could go on for hours on the obvious partiality, but you get the point. My entire life, I've been treated as a second-class person within my own family. Tristan's entire personality was transformed the moment he received the Tesla. I am not even kidding. Dude couldn't go 5 minutes without discussing his whip or sharing Instagram stories from the dashboard. The car was no longer merely a mode of mobility for him. It had become his entire personality. Tesla Bro was born, and it was as annoying as it sounds. Every night, he would arrive home at 2 a.m., from whatever bar he was at and rev the engine in the driveway like a true tool. Yes, I understand that Teslas do not have engines to rev, but this dip would floor the acceleration back and forth in our driveway, producing that electric whirring noise at full blast. He'd wake up the entire neighborhood since, obviously, sleep is reserved for peasants who don't own the electric automobiles that Daddy purchased. The youngster drove like he was auditioning for Fast and Furious 27. Electric Baloo, driving down residential streets where children play, performing donuts in grocery store parking lots, and recording those TikTok videos where people pretend to sleep while their Tesla is on autopilot. Every time I suggested that treating public highways like his personal racetrack wasn't the best idea, he'd smirk and tell me to quit being such a buzzkill, bro. I even saw him drive intoxicated several times. This wasn't just being a douche, it was actively hazardous to those around him. I offered to be his designated driver several times or to call him an Uber, but he declined. The automobile basically drives itself, bro. Except that autopilot does not magically eliminate the effects of drinking on your judgment and reaction time. His friends fared no better. They would pack into the Tesla, usually 4 or 5 of them, all equally wasted, and go on a joyride. Their words, not mine. I warned them all several times that something horrible was about to happen. I also warned my parents. Everyone urged me to mind my own business. My mother genuinely said, and I'm quoting exactly here, "You're just jealous you don't have friends who want to have fun with you." Yes, Mom, I'm quite envious since I don't have buddies who wish to die in a catastrophic crash or kill innocent people. You caught me. With each passing day, Tristan became more reckless. The videos become more dangerous. The speeds increased. It wasn't a matter of whether something would happen, but when. Everyone, except me, appeared utterly unaware of what was about to happen. But then the inevitable occurred. On a Thursday night, I was in my room working when I heard my parents' door bang open at 3 a.m. There was frenzied talking in the hallway, followed by my father's car starting and rushing away. I found my mother downstairs, looking as if she had seen a ghost. When I asked what was going on, she murmured something about, "Your brother had a little accident with the Tesla, and that my father had gone to pick him up. A minor collision." That's family code for a catastrophic blunder that they're already plotting how to avoid. Around 4:30 a.m., I heard my father's car arrive into our driveway. I went to the front window and saw him almost pulling Tristan along the walkway. He could barely walk, was missing a shoe, and had what seemed to be dried blood on his forehead. My father was desperately shushing Tristan as he slurred, "Tree came out of nowhere, man." It turns out that Golden Boy wrapped his Tesla around a tree after leaving a bar. Isn't that shocking? Who could have expected this absolutely unpredictable incident, which I had been warning everyone about for weeks? By some miracle, he was not gravely injured, only a gash on his forehead and possibly some bruises from the airbag. However, the Tesla was nearly destroyed. Front end was smashed in. Airbags were deployed. The windshield cracked. The whole 9 yards. They escorted him to his room as if he were a baby who had stayed up past bedtime rather than a grown-ass man who had just committed a crime. I didn't get the complete story until the following morning. Tristan had been to the Rusty Nail. He got completely inebriated with his equally intelligent companions and then concluded that driving was an excellent idea. His friends, these stand-up citizens, appear to have encouraged this scheme, with one even video Tristan doing shots and then twirling his Tesla key, saying, "Let's see what this baby can really do." On his way home, he turned an extremely fast corner, lost control, jumped the curb, and plowed into a large oak tree owned by a poor homeowner. My father arrived ahead of the police. According to my mother's whispered phone call to my aunt, which I completely overheard, my father handled the situation with the homeowners. I have no idea what he promised them, but knowing my father, it was not cheap. He probably wrote them a check right away and forgot about it. The true mystery was how he persuaded them not to report the incident to the police. They had the Tesla towed to our garage, where it sat like a massive metal middle finger. The front end had entirely caved in. The hood collapsed like an accordion. Both airbags had deployed, leaving a strange powder residue across the interior. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks, and one of the front wheels was deformed at an angle that was clearly not factory standard. It was now a $60,000 paperweight. The garage door remained closed. 2 days after the accident, my parents arranged a family meeting in the living room. Throughout the history of family meetings, no one has ever been called to deliver good news. Nobody ever calls a family meeting and says, "Hey, we're all going to Disney World." So, I entered the living room. My parents were seated on the couch, making those serious faces you see when someone is ready to beg for a favor. Tristan slouched in the armchair, swiping through his phone as if the entire situation was a little inconvenience, diverting his attention away from his crucial TikTok perusing. The bruise on his face had turned a gorgeous shade of yellow-purple, which actually complemented his attractiveness. My father cleared his throat and looked at me with that fake serious expression he has when he's going to say something absolutely absurd but wants to appear logical and fair. He has a routine that includes straightening his back, clearing his throat, and clasping his hands together. It's like watching a nervous actress practice for a scene. "Son," he called out. "We've looked into the damage to Tristan's car." He said it as if Tesla had acquired a cold. "The insurance won't cover it because..." He trailed off, visibly uneasy. "Because he was driving drunk," I concluded for him. My mother gave me a look that could curdle milk. "Don't be dramatic. He'd only had a few drinks." "Right." After a few beers, he was unable to walk straight or construct intelligible sentences when he returned home. In my mother's world, anything less than being completely unconscious is considered a couple beers. My father continued as if I had not spoken. "The point is, repairs are going to cost around $18,000, and we think it's only fair that we all chip in as a family." I actually laughed aloud, believing it was a joke. I then knew they were serious. They had the audacity, the ultimate brass balls, to ask me to assist pay for repairs on a car that I don't own, don't drive, and was damaged because he chose to drive drunk and smash it. I couldn't believe what I heard. "You want me to help pay for repairs on a car that I don't own, don't drive, and was damaged because he decided to drive drunk?" I asked again, just to be sure I wasn't having a stroke and hallucinating this conversation. "We're a family," my mother remarked, as if that clarified everything. "And you're the only one with significant savings right now." Ah. There it was. They knew I had been saving to move out, and they saw it as a handy way to compensate for their golden child's error. My savings were not for my future. It was simply an emergency fund for Christ's fuck-it-ups. "I get it. How much are you expecting me to chip in?" I said, using air quotes around chip in because we all knew that meant pay for the most of it. My father had the decency to appear slightly uncomfortable. "Well, your mother and I can put in about $3,000 from our emergency fund. Tristan has about $500 saved up." LOL. Of course, Tristan only had $500 to his name, despite never having paid rent or expenses. That money was undoubtedly set aside for marijuana and whatever pricey streetwear brand he was into that month. "So you want me to pay the other $14,500? I completed for him. It was not a question. My dad nodded, happy that I understood. "We'll figure out a payment plan. Maybe $1,000 a month until it's paid off. We know you've been saving up." Tristan finally looked up from his phone and added, "It's not like you need a fancy apartment anyway. You're always working." The chutzpah of this child could power a small city. He smashes his Tesla, the one I cautioned him not to drive drunk in, and then gives me financial advice on how I should spend my hard-earned money. I got money by working 2 jobs and paying rent to my own parents. That was when I lost it. I laughed again, but not in a good way. It was the kind of chuckle you have when something is so ridiculous that you can't be furious about it anymore. I'm not giving you a single cent for this, I stated, looking each of them in the eyes. Tristan crashed the car because he was driving drunk, and he should be grateful he's not sharing a cell with some guy named Bubba right now. This is his problem, not mine. My parents looked at me as if I had suggested sacrificing the family dog. After everything we've done for you, my mother began, her voice shaking in that manipulative tone she'd honed over the years. The Guilt Trip Express was departing the station. What have you done for me exactly? I was wondering. Made me pay rent while he lives free? Given him a Tesla while I drive a car that's older than his driver's license? Constantly dismissed my accomplishments while celebrating his mediocrity. Please, elaborate on all you've done for me that justifies me paying for his drunk driving accident. My father's face got that distinct shade of red that only comes when someone questions his authority. You will contribute to fixing your brother's car. End of discussion. I stood up, surprised at how peaceful I felt. No, I won't. End of my discussion. The expressions on their faces were priceless. They were so used to me giving in, to being the responsible one who makes sacrifices for the family, that they couldn't accept this new version of me who wasn't going to give up. You're being selfish, my mother said, pulling out the final weapon from her arsenal. No, I'm being realistic, I explained. Tristan chose to drive drunk. He chose to crash the car. That means he can deal with the consequences for once in his life. I walked out of the living room and back to my room, rejecting their requests to return and discuss this like adults. The irony of their sudden desire for an adult talk was not lost on me. As I closed my bedroom door, I heard Tristan say, "So does this mean I'm not getting the car fixed?" That kid is always focused on his goals. I had no idea what they would do next, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over. In my family, no is not considered a complete response. It's simply an opportunity to find more innovative ways to achieve what they desire. My parents scarcely spoke to me for the following few days, only asking whether I had reconsidered their gracious offer to let me pay for Tristan's error. I kept my responses short and to the point. No. This resulted in a lot of heavy sighs, slammed doors, and my mother engaging in passive-aggressive behavior by talking about me in the third person when I'm literally in the same room. Some people just don't understand family loyalty, she would say to no one in particular as I ate breakfast 3 feet away from her. You're really subtle, Mom. I saw them whispering a couple times while hunched around the kitchen table, papers strewn out. When I walked in, they would quiet down. This was never a positive indicator in my family. When people stop talking when you walk into a room, you can bet your ass they're talking about you, and not in a way that suggests they're arranging his surprise party. Friday night, I arrived home from work to find my father on the phone with an insurance company representative. He was speaking in his professional voice, which he uses to persuade others that he isn't a liar. I heard language like complete coverage and vandalism claims before he noticed me and took the call into his office. Vandalism claim? That was new. Drunk driving into a tree is not considered vandalism, unless the tree filed charges. I assumed they were grasping at straws, hoping to find some way to get the insurer to pay. Good luck with it. Insurance firms hire entire departments whose sole responsibility is to find reasons not to pay claims. But, whatever. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Saturday morning, setup. Saturday morning began with a boom, literally. I was jerked awake at 7 a.m. It sounded like someone was bashing the crap out of a metal trash can. I stumbled out of bed and looked out my window, which overlooked our driveway, but I saw nothing strange. The noise had stopped. I assumed it was just the garbage collectors being overly aggressive and went back to bed. Approximately 1 hour later, all hell broke loose. I awoke to shouts from the garage. I put on some sweatpants and headed downstairs to see Tristan standing in the open garage, my parents behind him. All three were staring at the Tesla. The car was significantly more damaged than before. And I don't mean a bit more damaged, it appeared that the Hulk had a particular vendetta against it. The windshield had entirely smashed. All of the windows were broken. There were significant damages in the doors and hood. The side mirrors were dangling from cables. One of the headlights had just disappeared. Everything was almost impressive how completely ruined everything was. What the hell happened? I questioned, completely perplexed. Sure, the automobile was messed up from the incident, but this was on another level. Tristan whirled around, his face flushed with apparent wrath. Like you don't know? You did this? I actually laughed. I was asleep all night. I didn't touch your car. My father held up something, a baseball bat. My baseball bat. From my high school days. The one I kept in my closet as a reminder of when I played. Then why was this in the bushes outside? My father inquired, his voice doing that phony calm thing that indicates he's actually quite upset. I responded I had no idea, but my mother cut me off. Don't lie to us. It was my bat, which I had possessed for years. But I hadn't touched it for months. It sat in the back of my closet, alongside other high school sports gear I never utilized. We've already called the insurance company, my father said smugly. They're sending an investigator on Monday. We told them someone vandalized the car out of jealousy. That's when something clicked. Tristan must have stolen my bat and further damaged his already damaged Tesla. He then placed the bat to frame me. The insurance wouldn't cover the drunk driving accident. What about vandalism? This might be covered. Bonus points for exacting retribution on Big Bro, who refused to pay for his error. Now it made sense. I looked at Tristan and noticed the small smile he was trying so hard to disguise. This wasn't simply him being a spoiled brat. This was true malice. He purposely set me up. And my parents were in on it. You're seriously going to frame me for this? I questioned, gazing directly at Tristan. He smirked. Who do you think they'll believe? He was asking. The straight A student with a bright future or the jealous older brother who still lives at home and complains about everything? My parents stood behind him, their arms crossed. A united front, against me. They had already chosen their side, as they always did. It didn't matter that they were committing insurance fraud, which is a criminal. It didn't matter that they were willing to blame me for something I hadn't done. All that mattered was to preserve their golden child. This is bullshit, and you know it, I remarked, surprisingly cool given the situation. I didn't touch the car. I was asleep all night. My mother scoffed. We heard you leave your room around 2 a.m. The neighbor's security camera probably caught you too. That was intriguing. We didn't have any neighbors with security cameras, at least not ones that could capture our driveway or garage. They were lying. That meant they knew exactly what had transpired. Because they helped plan it. Or, at the absolute least, they knew Tristan had done it and were covering for him. So let me get this straight, I responded, crossing my arms. You want me to either pay $14,500 for repairs to a car I don't own, or you'll frame me for vandalizing it to commit insurance fraud? Those are my options? My father's face reddened. Nobody's framing anyone. We know you did this because you're angry about the money. I returned to my room without saying another thing. There was no point in arguing with them. They had already determined their interpretation of reality. I closed the door, sat on my bed, and tried to think. This quickly went from ordinary familial bias to outright criminal activity. I grabbed my phone and called my supervisor, requesting an emergency day off for Monday. I was not going to leave my defense in the hands of my family when the insurance investigator showed there. I needed to be there to explain my side of the story.